Who's actually going to get the most out of a 400-watt, 3-axis CNC router, and who should walk away before they waste time and money? Is it worth the price tag for the everyday maker who just wants to cut a few pieces of wood, or does it belong in a more serious workshop? Those are the questions I hear over and over when people stare at the spec sheet and wonder if this machine will fit their needs. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. If you've ever tried to turn a hobby-grade CNC kit into a reliable tool for small batch production, you know the hesitation that comes with every new purchase. The biggest fear is ending up with a box of metal, motors and a dusty workbench that never quite cuts straight, or spending a few $100s only to discover the machine can't handle the material you actually need. That's why I spent a few days digging through forums, watching unboxing videos, and reading through the handful of reviews that do exist for the FoxAlien ZEPRO 3-axis 400W CNC router plus its 3-in-1 dust shoe. What I found is a mix of solid engineering choices and a few practical trade-offs that are worth spelling out before you click Add to Cart. First, let's talk about the kind of work this machine is built for. The ZEPRO comes with a 400-watt spindle and 1204 ball screws on each of the X, Y and Z axes. In plain language, that means you have enough torque to carve hardwood, cut acrylic, and even mill light aluminum if you're careful with feed rates. The ball screw drive gives you smoother motion than the typical belt-driven hobby kits, which translates to less chatter when you're engraving a detailed logo onto a walnut guitar top or cutting a precise pocket for an electronics enclosure. The bundled 3-in-1 dust shoe is designed to snap onto 3 common collet sizes 52mm, 65mm, and 69mm, so you can swap between a standard router bit, a high-speed steel engraving bit, or a small end mill without having to buy a separate shroud. For anyone who moves between wood, plastics and light metal, that flexibility is a real time saver. Now, who should walk away? If you're brand new to CNC, and you just want to cut a few 24s for a weekend project, the ZEPRO might feel like overkill. The machine arrives as a fairly extensive kit that needs a solid amount of assembly frame bolts, linear rail alignment, wiring the power supply and configuring the control software. For a complete beginner, that can be a steep learning curve, and the time spent on setup can easily eclipse the cost of the hardware itself. Also, the travel limits are modest, roughly 300mm on the Z-axis and 200mm on the Y-axis, which is fine for small parts, but restrictive if you need to cut full-size sheets of plywood or larger acrylic panels. In that case, you'd be better off looking at a larger gantry system or a laser cutter that handles bigger dimensions out of the box. On the other side of the aisle, the ZEPRO shines for the serious hobbyist and the small shop owner who's already comfortable with basic CNC concepts. Think of makers who run a side business making custom keycaps, wooden signage, or small production runs of PCBs. The upgradable linear rail design means you can start with the stock rails that FoxAlien ships, then later swap in higher precision rails if you need tighter tolerances for, say, a PCB milling project where a 0.1mm deviation matters. The ball screw system also reduces backlash, so you can trust the machine to repeat the same cut over and over without noticeable drift. Practical strengths that matter after you've gotten it up and running include the dust management system and the spindle power. In the videos I watched, users praised how the dust shoe captures chips when they are using a 65mm collet with a standard woodcutting bit. The collection chamber sits right under the work area, so you don't have to set up a separate shop vac for every job. That's a subtle but huge convenience if you're sharing a garage workshop with a partner who doesn't want a cloud of sawdust hanging around. The spindle's 400W rating also means you can push to higher RPMs, around 24,000 revolutions per minute according to the spec sheet, which is essential for clean engraving on softer woods or for fine detail work on acrylic. Where the machine shows its limits is in the out-of-the-box precision and the need for ancillary accessories. The frame is sturdy enough for hobby use, but without a proper vacuum table, or a dedicated work-holding jig, you'll spend a lot of time clamping and reclamping material to keep it from shifting during a long cut. The dust shoe, while versatile, only fits the 3 listed collet sizes, so if you have a specialty bit that uses a different shank, you'll need to improvise a mounting solution or purchase an adapter. Also, the control software that ships with the router is functional, but not as polished as some commercial packages. Users have reported a few hiccups when trying to import large DXF files, and you may